All right, good morning, everyone. We'll get started with Coach Traylor here. Just use the raise hand function. I'll call on you for questions. JJ?
Jeff, just after watching the film, how would you say your team looked on this past week?
We played as good as we have all year. Taking the opening drive down and scoring was big for us. Key conversion on 3rd down 7 to tie key. Then creating the turnover. Trey Moore with a great spin move on their right tackle, getting the ball out. And Frank hitting Cephas there to make us 14-0. Just the exact opposite of what happened versus Army, where we got down because of a turnover 14-0 and we never could come out of it. Thought the drive in the 3rd quarter, right after they answered, we had the turnover right before halftime, something I regret, not trying to run the ball first before we tried to get a little too cute. But I thought when they came down, when you lose momentum like that right before halftime and then they come out and score on the opening drive, our offense went right down the field and answered. And yeah, I know you could be very judgmental that our defense didn't stop them on that drive, but the plays that UAB made on 3rd down were incredible. I mean, the 3rd down and 8 completion with Rashad, was right there. 3rd down completion on DeJuan, he was literally right there. I mean, sometimes the other team makes plays too, but our offense did a great job of going down and answering. I thought those were some of the critical moments in the ball game.
Your offense put up 40 points for the 2nd straight week. Is that just a combination of the offense playing better along with the defense as well?
I think 5 turnovers has a lot to do with that. Statistically, we weren't as good because the fields were so short all night. But our special teams were just so good, and our defense was so good. Our average starting field position was on the 40 just from our return team. I almost declined the penalty, because we got the ball on the 35, and that was worse than what our average was. So I wasn't going to be that arrogant, but we were that successful with our Delta team, which is what we call our kickoff return team. So it all plays together. We weren't as bad offensively as you think we were, even in the month of September, which you reminded me of right when the game was over. But we had had to go 88 yards and 92 yards a lot of times. It's just hard to be good consistently. And I'm not saying we were great. We were not by any stretch of the imagination. But we weren't as bad as it looked like we were.
Greg?
Jeff, what did it mean to you to see Joshua Cephas become the program's all-time leading receiver in this game?
Well, there's a couple things that came to mind. I remember I always thought he was good, but like our first game against Texas State, he made one of the most incredible one-handed catches I've ever seen. And his consistency through the years, just how he comes to work every day, the exact same. Couldn't brag on him enough. There's a play in the game where if you'll go back and look at it, we have a trips formation, and McEwen is supposed to be blocking for Josh for the bubble, and Josh just switches McEwen, and Josh takes the blocker's role and lets McEwen have the bubble. Now, we didn't throw the RPO out there; we handed the ball off. But I bet there's not in the history of the game, I don't know if there's ever been the leading receiver in the history of the school give up the ball to a freshman so he could go block for him. To me, that's the secret to the sauce of why our teams just get a little bit better through the month of October and get better through November. Just that unselfishness in a society where no one talks about what's best for everyone anymore. It's always about who can get the most clicks and who can get the most likes and what can you do for me. And I don't want to sound like an old grouchy man like my 3 kids tell me I am all the time. But I do think it's important that people still brag on what's best for the group and highlight something like Josh being so unselfish in a moment where he became the leading receiver in the history of the school. I think that just sums up Josh.
What was that moment like in the locker room, giving him the ball and the reception from his teammates, who I imagine see a lot of that stuff as well?
It's easy for him because of how unselfish he is, and those kids know he is. He's quite arguably the best blocking receiver in the history of the school as well. And our guys take pride in blocking. But he's as good as I've ever seen it doing it. He plays the slot. We put him outside as well. But when you're in the slot, you got to go in there and dig that nickel out so many times. And it's easy to celebrate him because he's such about his teammates.
Okay, we'll go to you, Stephen.
Hey, Coach, I just wanted to get your thoughts on Robert Henry and what he's brought to your running game this year.
Yeah, since Greg has mentioned his grill, I at least realized that. I didn't know he ever even had a grill on before, so it shows you how unaware I am about certain things. But yeah, the kid's talented, and him and Kaborian did a really good job back there. They're a good little 1-2 punch, and we hope to get Rocco back this week to get the 3-headed monster going against the 2-headed monster. So I know everybody likes to, we all talk about the things that, like him jumping someone and those kind of deals, or grills or whatever. It's fun, right? It's fun to talk about. But the thing I'm most proud of Robert, how he protects the quarterback now. He knows who he's supposed to block. He gets up in and he takes the air out of the rusher and gets his feet hot and hands inside and eyes inside and sit in his chair, and just those little things that are really boring to you guys that really excite old cranky football coaches like me.
You mentioned Rocco. Has that been kind of an injury thing, or what's his situation?
Yeah, he's just been banged up a little bit, which is why I like to rotate a lot of backs. And we've done that. We tried to do it last year with 3 backs. We never could get Trey going. And then we lost Brendan, so we were down to 1. Cater was coming back from those ACLs. So those guys have really bought into, which I'm just telling them the truth. There's only so many blows those guys are going to take in their career. When they're young, you don't think about that. But as they get to that next level and they're 25, 26 years old, that stuff adds up. And those NFL scouts can tell how good they can play by getting 10 to 12 carries a game versus getting 25 carries in a game.
And you guys are 2-0 in conference for the second year in a row and on a 10-game winning streak in conference. What is it about when the calendar shifts to conference play that it seems y'all kick it up another notch?
Yeah, I'm not counting, but it's the 3rd year in a row, Stephen. We're 2-0, but I'm not counting. I don't know what that is. I think we play a really tough schedule every year. That has something to do with it. I think our culture, which I know that everybody gets tired of hearing that word. Our kids like coming to work every day. They enjoy being here. We don't treat them differently when they win and when they lose. We're really consistent with them. There's a standard. It's our triangle of toughness, our 2-0, our brand that we hold ourselves to. And that's on the field and off the field. And we just play to that standard. We try our very best to drown out outside noise. We know we're not as good as everybody says we are when we win, but we also know we're not as bad as everybody says we are when we lose. We hold ourselves to a standard, and our kids just continue to get better a little bit each day. I know I said it in the post-game press conference, Stephen, but when you got a bunch of guys that like each other, that have a great culture, and you give them a good plan, and you're consistent, and you give them unconditional love, they just get better each week. And our kids have done that, for 4 straight years now.
Back to you, Greg.
Sorry for the delay there. Jeff, what kind of a difference does it make for your defense when Trey Moore is flying around and making plays like that compared to the couple weeks previous when he was injured and kind of slowed a little bit?
You know what? Trey's out of Smithson Valley, tough kid, but also getting Brandon Matterson back, another San Antonio kid out of Brandeis. Danye being healthy, getting out of the knee brace from Shiner, Texas. 3 Texas high school football players, right? And all those guys being up and running. We did bring a few pressures and got home that way. We got Rashad Wisdom home, right out of Converse, another San Antonio kid. But we also just won some one-on-one battles. The very first strip turnover, he just, put the right tackle on a spin move and made a great individual play. So Jamori had a sack as well. We just got to the quarterback more than we have been. We're getting better. And I know everybody just thinks that stuff just happens, but a lot of work goes into that move Jamori made to get that sack. A lot of work went into that move that Trey made to get that sack. So it wasn't just Trey, but all of them. I think the energy of our crowd also got our guys going. I thought that was going to help us, and it did, which is going to be a big challenge for us this Saturday, is creating that energy again when we go to Boca Raton.
Trey said after the game that he thought the defense had maybe a different attitude Saturday just because of maybe some of the struggles in previous weeks or some of the criticism of the group. Did you see that brought something out of them?
I've said this a million times. I know we try to not drown the outside noise. I mean, you try to drown it out, but it's impossible. So we just deal with it now. We just talk about it. Like, here's what they're saying, and they're already hearing it. So, but some of it was fair, right? We didn't get the field on third down. That's the head coach was saying it. I'm sure you and JJ and everybody else out there was saying, I don't know. So believe it or not, during the season, I mute you guys, but I unmute y'all as soon as the season's over. But we try to mute all that. You just can't because it's out there and it's real. So I imagine if Trey said that, I believe him. But they were hearing it from us as well.
All right, Hector.
Morning, Coach.
Hello, Hector. I haven't muted you yet, Hector. You're still good, brother.
I appreciate that, Coach. Thank you. I know JJ gets the mute treatment from everybody, so love you, JJ. Coach, in addition to starting off conference play with the 2 wins, I imagine 3-3, as arbitrary as that might be in the grand scheme of things, does 3-3 just feel different than 1-3?
I really try not to think about it too much, Hector. That 2-0 number is obviously the one that matters the most. I know I'm sure recruiting, my kids, the locker room, all those kind of things, I imagine that all really does matter. But yeah, I'd sure as heck rather be 3-3 than 1-3. There's no doubt about it, Hector. But we try to drown it out the best we can. But yeah, that sounds better. Just you saying it makes it sound better.
And piggybacking off of Steven's question earlier in terms of the success you guys have had, unless my math is bad, and that's a big if, I think it's 22-3 conference record since you've been here. And Steven asked if there's something to it. I just imagine I know each team is different, right? And each team takes on a life of its own. But I'm just wondering if, after you guys having had so much success for now 3+ years, if that's something that permeates through the kids. Like if they sense you know what, we're in conference play, things are different, flip the script, whatever. I'm running out of cliches here, but I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah, if you count the conference championships, which I would imagine you would, we're actually 24-3 in our last 27. We're 19 out of our last 20. Do we talk about that? Yes, we do. And I've said it before. Maybe it's just the old Texas high school football coach in me. And maybe I've just got to do a better job in our non-district games. I'm being funny. I'm sure that'll be national media. It's non-conference, I understand, in college. But it is different. I mean, you play more kids. You try to let them see what they can do. And when you get to conference play, that's how you win a conference championship. You got to win the most games. It's the way the rules are written. So it's not that we're intentionally bad in September. I think of all that, though, the most important deal is we get a little bit better every day. And because they like coming to work, they like being here. And that still matters. We treat our players the same, whether they win or they lose. And that's not common. Most coaches or programs, if they win, you're eating steaks and you're eating shrimp and you're eating lobster. And if you lose, you're eating hot dogs. And this is not what we do here. We're very consistent with our kids. It's unconditional love at all times. It doesn't mean they're not disciplined. It doesn't mean we don't hold them to a standard. Our standard is the 2-1-0 triangle of toughness, our brand. And that's what we try to get to every day. So our kids just get a little bit better each week. And it's just the way we do it. And it's not to say that the programs that don't do it our way are any worse or any better. We're just consistent and our kids show up every day. And I think that is the biggest, and great players. I mean, you can't you got to have a great quarterback, which we do. We've got great receivers, or linemen. We've got great players. So that helps in the winning.
Thank you, Coach. And again, apologies for the bad math. I knew it'd be bad. I gypped you the
Well,
you know.
we're not the only one. Some guys don't count the conference championships as conference wins. So I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, when you play the best team in the conference for 2 years in a row and you beat them, those should count double, I think, Steven. So it should be like, 26-3 instead of 24-3.
All right, JJ, we'll go back to you.
Jeff, at the midway point of the season, how would you evaluate your team or grade your team?
Well, according to JJ, we got an F in September and we've got an A in October. So I guess you'd combine those together and we'd have a C, I guess, which is what 3-3 is. I'm being funny. I know when we're doing this like this, it comes across as my sarcasm, but when y'all put it out on Twitter and it just looks like a quote, I'm going to look like some jerk. So, I think there is something to be said for continuing to get better. We're 2-0 right now. We're playing a really good football team. Coach Herman's done a fantastic job everywhere he's ever been. At Houston, he did a fantastic job. At the University of Texas, he did a fantastic job, and he's already done a great job at FAU. They've got really good players. They're physical. They run the ball well. They throw it. They're really physical on defense up front. And it's going to be a heck of a ball game Saturday. Now, you got two undefeated teams playing each other. We got to go on the road. We had no success at all offensively the last time we went there. One of the most frustrating days of our lives. So we've got a lot to work on against a really good opponent. But 2-0 teams getting after it this Saturday.
Greg?
Jeff, we saw Cyrus Dumas play his first significant action in a game this season. What did you see from him, and what should we expect for him going forward and the role he might take in this defense?
About what you'd expect. His first game, rust, but the twitch is there, which we expected to see. He just got to get used to it and get out there. And he's had some really bad run of injuries, and two different injuries since he's been here. So we're excited to get him out there. And I think you continue to see him get better each week.
JT did not dress for this game after we've seen him kind of at least suiting up the last few weeks. Is there any sort of change in how you're approaching that, or what should we make of that situation?
Just had a setback during the week, and he just wasn't able to go. His knee just wasn't feeling good, so he couldn't play.
Does that remain kind of a week-to-week situation, or do you think that setback puts him maybe behind a little bit farther?
We're going to get looked at some more this week, and we hope to have, some answers by the end of the week.
I wanted to ask you about the special teams as well. What was your overall take on the way that unit played against UAB across the board?
I thought there was a couple of huge plays in the game. Our kickoff return team was fantastic the entire night. Really, really happy for we call them our Delta unit. Our Night Stalkers has been consistent the entire season, which is our kickoff team. Early in the year, we struggled a little bit. We've got that cleaned up right now. I thought the kick that Chase made was huge because we took a sack. So not only it was a 53-yarder, but we had just lost probably 10 to 12 yards of the play before. So there was a tremendous momentum shift there. For him to step up and kick the longest kick in the history of the school was big. So close on our punt return. We're getting there, and there's just one guy right now. We're one away from getting that one done. And disappointed in our SEALs team, our punt team. We did not kick the ball very effectively in our sky kick situations. We've got to get better at that. But overall, tremendous success. I think we outgained them by 140 yards in special teams. And those units have just continued to get better each week. But as I said in the post-game press conference, it's the first time all year all three phases were really good at the same time. All year long, we've been inconsistent, and it's been one unit or two units, but it's never been all three.
What went into the decision to go to Willie McCoy on kickoff returns after you started the year with Chris Carpenter there?
Again, kind of like the running back position, there's only so many shots those guys can take. That's a really physical position back there. And, Chris is a slight frame, and he had been battling some injuries, and Willie had done that at Kilgore Junior College, and so we just decided to share the roles.
Is there anything beyond the obvious of speed that makes Willie so effective in that role?
He's powerful, he's fearless, and he's done it a lot. So he's getting better each week as well.
I'm sure you guys and you personally enjoyed seeing when the short kick went to Cam Cooper and he made a little bit of a play there and ran over a couple guys. What was the reaction to that like on the sideline, and what did that play mean for your group?
Yeah, that was a big one. Our kids, that was another momentum play, and got all of our guys juiced up. And we celebrated Cam yesterday in the team meeting. He's one of our triangle winners. Yeah, I was glad to see a smile for Cam. Cam played defense and in high school, so there's been a little bit of a slower adaptation to playing tight end, but he's continuing to get better, and he's really excelling our special teams lately.
I know UAB kicked one out of bounds as well. How much of an advantage is it when they feel like they have to start going away from your returner and then kicking it short like that?
Yeah, it gives you a lot of confidence on the sideline, but you're also worried there's an onside kick coming because they know when they're doing that, they're not feeling real good about their kickoff team. So really, really proud for our guys that they executed. We expected a bunch of alternative kicks, and we got them. Our unit has been getting better, and their kickoff team have been struggling. So we kind of felt that was going to be an advantage for us in the game.
You mentioned the 53-yarder with Chase Allen, but there was another one where you guys had like a 4th and medium and elected to kick him rather than go for it after initially lining up for that one. How much does his leg strength and maybe his reliability as well sort of change your decision-making in those spots with what he's shown you so far?
Well, it's never been, except when he got injured in the first game, it's never been an issue of me not trusting Chase. It's just been, maybe like in Tennessee, we could have kicked one. But, I mean, if you've got I was trying to win a ball game. And when I looked at their offensive personnel, I knew it was going to take more than field goals to win the game. So sometimes it's not the kicker as much as it is you as the head coach. I heard Dan beating himself up a lot after the Oregon game, for not kicking the field goals. But in his assessment before the game, I'm sure he thought he needed a certain number of points to win the game. So it's not always about the kicker. Sometimes it's just about your overall assessment of your team.
I know you talked about after the opener against Houston how costly the special teams were in some scenarios. Did it take on a renewed or heightened focus after that, or what did it take to get to the point where now the last few weeks that's been a strong point for your group?
No, it's never that. I know if it was just that, I mean, every time you play bad the week before, you'd play good the next week. It's not that. That's just too easy. It's always a fundamental. It's always a detail. It's not like that. I really wish it was that simple. I mean, that I really do. It's just not that simple, or everybody would fix it. It's sometimes it's the player. I never want to blame the player, but you might have him in a wrong position, and you need to put him in another spot where he can excel a little bit. You might have just evaluated him wrong in fall count, and Houston's good, so it's always good to play good people because it really does exploit your own team, and it makes you make some decisions that you might not make if you're playing inferior talent. Now, what's the negative of that? Well, you could be 1-3 in non-conference as well, and everybody tells you how much you stink in the month of September all the time. But it does tell you the truth about it's like my workouts. I mean, I go in there and do my little Jane Fonda workout for 20 minutes. It doesn't expose a whole lot, right? If I got Esteban in there and Esteban started putting me through a workout, I might get some things exposed right now that I need to adjust, right? And do better.
You have not shied away from using some of your starters on special teams either. We see even Rashad Wisdom is involved in a lot of those. What's your philosophy as it relates to that versus kind of saving those guys and not putting them on the special teams units?
Well, the kickoff is the first play of defense. I've never looked at it any other way. So it's a lot harder to call plays when you're an offensive football coach, calling from your 17 or 22 versus calling it from your 40 or 42. So, it's the triangle of toughness. It's why I put that brand up there. It's to remind me as well as the head coach that we're going to commit to stopping the run. We're going to commit to running the football, and we're going to play our best players on special teams. It is a fine line to your point of when you start getting injured and you start getting really thin, then it's when it gets tough. At the end of the year, usually about now on in, it gets dicey. about how many plays can those guys actually go. And you'd like for your young freshmen to start stepping up because you got 4 games, you can play them and not lose a year and save their red shirt. So we need some other guys to start coming on to maybe take some reps off those players.
Hector?
Coach, curious if there's any thoughts you want to share on your former player up on I-35. You got him earlier in the year, and I'm just wondering, they got another win this past weekend, dramatic fashion, and it feels, obviously specifics are different, but it feels like what you were building when you first got here, and just the fan base and how it's taken on a life of its own, and the run that they're starting here. Well, we'll see where it ends, or we'll see where it goes. But just any thoughts? The parallels are kind of eerie, especially considering your guys' background together. Just thought, curious to see if you had any thoughts.
Well, I've told you since day one, that's just GJ. I know he's, one of our rivals, and you're not supposed to say good things about your rival, but it doesn't surprise me at all. And I know you're going to be able to pull this same clip up for 100 times. Hector, I'm not going to say anything different. He's a really, really good young football coach. He was a great player, and he can spot talent. He surrounds himself with really good people. And usually presidents, ADs, communities get on board with guys that care about people and are good at their jobs. And GJ cares about people, and he's really good at his job. And no one is more proud or happy for me. And he's going to be a pain in my butt. I told everybody that when I helped him get the job, that he's going to be a pain in our butt. And we're going to lose some recruits to them, and they're going to lose some recruits to us. But it's good for football. It's good for the 2 cities. It's good for I-35. It's good for Texas high school football, because we're both going to recruit Texas high school football players. And it's all good. There's enough for all of us. There really is. There's enough for all of us. There's enough good players. There's enough winning. And couldn't be happier for him and his staff. A lot of those guys on that staff are friends of mine that I've worked with before, and happy for him.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Jeff.
you. God bless. Birds up.
Thank you, Coach.